All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Best Self Blueprint. So as you all know, the mission of this podcast is to bring on people with the knowledge, insights, and experiences that will help you pursue that best version of yourself, whatever that means to you, which we will get into that exact thing today with Kat, who has been on here multiple times. Thank you for gracing us with your third appearance.
No, thank you for having me.
Before we get going, everyone who's listened to this before, you've heard this spiel, but people who are just tuning in, this is a free resource. This is something that we do just because we love to do it. I love sitting down with these people, picking their brains, getting that information relayed to you. But a big part of that is we want this community to grow. So hitting the like button, hitting the subscribe button, hitting the share button, all the stuff you hear in every YouTube video, you could do it with this one too. But so we'll jump into it. So you went on the show Frogger.
Yes.
We'll start by just like first talking about the experience of Frogger in and of itself, but then obviously you had the whole like odyssey that was traveling to Australia during a pandemic. So just talk on that. Like what were kind of like the ups, the downs, and the biggest lessons?
Oh man, so many. So the ups and downs of actual like show part right now, or like, okay, ups and downs of the show. You see us competing in one episode and then it seems like, oh, we do the next course right away. But really it's, you have like a week and a half in between that. So having that week and a half is actually a mind F because you're thinking, oh my God, I'm going to compete. I'm going to do this. I don't want to mess up. Please don't let me mess up on the first jump. Please don't let me make a fool of myself. Please don't let them change my image. Because that's really scary. Because when you're like signing the contract, they're like, yeah, we can alter your image and you're signing that away. Like you're signing that right away. So that terrified me so much.
Yeah. One, like the added element too of like, it's one, I think there's levels to it, right? If you mess up by yourself, you kind of have that like, oh, dang it. If you mess up in front of a few other people, it's like, you feel that level of embarrassment a little bit. You're on TV.
Yeah. I know.
Where millions of people are going to see it. So there is that added element of like, I got to perform, right?
Yeah, it was definitely that. And also there were competitors that weren't athletes. And I'm like, wow, if they get farther than I do, what is my training for? What am I even doing?
Yeah.
And then another thing about my image is that we had no control over our makeup or our hair. So for me, the cat eyes are kind of like the signature and like my warrior marks and stuff. And they put like the minimal amount on with like the tiniest little eyeliner that I had to fight for. I'm like, please
give me something.
And then having this high ponytail with it slicked back, and I have a wider face, which is totally fine. But I'm like, this is not flattering at all. So everyone who watches is like, I didn't even recognize you. And I'm like, yeah.
I remember telling you, I was like, I watched it because it didn't like introduce you before it showed you. So it showed you and I kind of onced over and I was like, wait. And I went back, I'm like, oh, that's Kat.
It's the pink hair. That's like the only thing that tipped people off. They're like, oh yeah, that's Kat.
Yeah.
But it was so hard for me because that's another thing. That's my image. And it's scary being like, okay, I have to change my appearance in front of the whole world. It's not like, oh, I choose to do it, in an Instagram story where I can angle it very nicely and stuff. No, they choose the angles and everything like that. And there is even when they send you this like package before your episode airs, and it comes with pictures. And the pictures that they sent me, like everyone got these cool action shots. And I got one by the door being like,
action
it's
shot.
The most like unflattering image ever, where it was kind of like a little bit upward angle, so anything like closer to the camera looks a little bit wider. So it was so hard. And it was actually the day before, or the morning of, and then the night before we did the sweat lodge together. And so like that was in my head the whole time of being, my episode is airing tonight and I just look so bad, so bad. So I was really beating myself up then.
And in and of itself, that sweat lodge, which we've discussed in a couple other episodes, but so this sweat lodge, for people who don't know, is this like Native American ceremony where imagine sitting in a sauna that keeps getting hotter for over 2 hours
and having to talk.
and talking and singing and praying and
meditating and
and
having to discuss like deeper things and releasing emotions and everything. It's so much.
It got very intense. That actually might be worth diving into a little bit, especially with like you said, you had a lot of stuff that you brought with you into an already emotionally and physically intense ceremony. What? Because you like there was that point where you were just like, I need to just like lay down and just like check out for a second. Do you think it was more the physical, or was it like just the fact that there was so much emotional and then that little bit of like physical stress just kind of like
it was definitely the mental aspect of it. I know this because when we did it again, I was mentally stronger and I'm like, I can do this. And it's all about staying present in the sweat lodge, because if you're not present, then you're just going to think about the heat, and then you're going to think about all the things that you're thinking of. And when I was thinking of all the negative aspects that I was telling myself, I was closing myself up, closing my heart, making my breathing shallow. And that's the last thing that you need to do in a sweat lodge, because you need to really have deep breaths and concentrating on your breath. And it is very much just a meditation where if you aren't present, you're going to struggle and you're going to feel like you're suffocating, which is why I needed to lay down. And I was just so in my head about the episode airing that night.
Well, and I think a big piece of it too is like, you need to surrender to it, right? Like it's such a point of physical and mental discomfort that you almost have to surrender to the present moment of it. And that was something like I was talking about in there, where I just felt this like this warrior need, right, that I always have going into these races of like, I can just grit my way through it, I can control my way through it. And then in one of the meditations, I basically heard that voice being like, just let go. And as soon as I did, I was like, oh, I feel great. I'm ready to start singing again. Like, let's go. But it, like, when you have so much that you want, it's almost like that, like self-setting prison, right? Where you're like, I feel the need to worry about this stuff. And so it makes it that much harder to just like let go and surrender to it.
Yes, completely. And I did not surrender to it that first time, but the second time going in, it was the same thing. It was what you said about being that warrior aspect. I literally told myself like, no, I am strong. I am a warrior. And giving yourself that positive talk helps so much. It's even in workouts. I'm sure you feel it too. When you have those workouts where you're like, I'm so weak, I feel awful, you're going to do awful. But if you go in being like, no, this is great, I'm strong, this is fun, it's going to change your entire experience. So that's what it was.
So we're all over the place right now, but that's just kind of who we are. Like, you're getting an inside look at our friendship right now. But no, so I actually had, going off tangent again, we had that workshop, right, which we'll get into in a second. It was called the Meet You workshop, about the masks that we wear. And really, we were almost guiding people through a very like minimal ego death. Like we were allowing them to let go of parts of themselves that no longer served them. But me and Justin, her lovely fiance, were co-hosting this workshop. And I don't think we were ready really for like the intensity of the energy that was going to get put on us and that we were responsible for throughout that. So like afterwards we went and we sat in the office and did a meditation. We both just felt like we were like buzzing with energy. But when you hit that high of a high, there's going to be that crash after. And I didn't really alter my workouts at all. I was going through a ton of intense workouts early in the week that I was telling you about. And so on Wednesday I came in, and I'm not this person, as you know, but like I came in, I'm like, this sucks. I don't want to be here. Every rep felt like a chore. And it gave me a very big insight into how a lot of people feel about exercise, because I usually love it, but I just felt like I was dragging. And so it took the conscious effort of me after my workout, before I took on any clients, I locked myself in the bathroom for like 20 minutes and was just like, all right, so I have this wristband that I wear at work. And that to me is going from like Clark Kent to Superman, where when I put that on, like I have that like superpower of like bright, positive, uplifting, motivational, inspirational. And so I was like, just put this on for 3 hours and then you can go home and you can crash. But like, it really does, like when we talk about this mindset, right, of like having that intention is just that you need to create sometimes that intention and be aware of when you are in a negative mental space and create that separation from it to allow yourself to like reset and recalibrate.
Yeah, completely. And it's kind of like what you said in another one of our conversations about you look at yourself in third person and you're like, what is Trevor feeling?
What is
right
the
now?
Trevor
What is the
thinking?
Trevor feeling right now?
Yeah, it's such an important aspect of it to go from like just allowing your mind to be your experience to then taking that step back and looking at, okay, how are you thinking?
Yeah.
Not just what are you thinking, but what is the pattern, right? Like what's the process that's going on? Which I know you battled with. So I'm just going to lay an outline. We'll start to actually control this a little bit. So like, I want to talk about, cause you had this mental battle throughout the whole process of like the trip to Australia with COVID, with being by yourself, with kind of having that adventurous nature taken from you, like a lot of that stuff that identifies you at your core.
Yeah.
There was like, yep, nope, we're going to hold on to that for a while.
Yeah.
So I want to go over that, but then also kind of how it applies and how it relates to this workshop that we did and just living authentically. But run people through that, because I think there's a lot of powerful lessons in just your trip to Australia and kind of the curveballs that were thrown at you.
Yeah. Even just like little things beforehand, like trying to finish my 30-day challenge before. It was so silly. Before going to Australia was so hard because I was already mentally crashed, being like, how is this going to go? Is this a good decision? Should I really do this? What if I miss out on other opportunities? What if they change my image? All that kind of stuff was running through my brain. And then on top of that, I had to have my blood drawn and stuff. And that terrifies me. I hate doing that stuff. And then thinking, I have to be on this physical show and be in a hotel room for 2 weeks by myself. How is that going to be? And then it was kind of coming back to myself and being like, Kat, that's what you do. You do home workouts. Like you'll be fine. And I even did some of my challenge in the hotel room just over again. And I pressed play. And then I got sick of myself because I was only with myself.
Yeah.
So I started not watching my videos. But it really was, again, like the sweat lodge, learning to stay present with myself, because there were 2 days, I call them my 2 dark days during the 14-day quarantine, where I was just spiraling in a dark place. And I'm like, what am I doing? I don't want to be here. I don't deserve to be here. I'm not strong enough. And you really only have yourself, because yeah, you have FaceTime with friends and with Justin and everything, but it's still a disconnect. So it's just becoming that strong person. And like we were talking about with identity, and you put on that wristband, I kind of put myself in the position of my favorite music artist, Curly. And she went into her like forest temple in Estonia by herself for, I think it was like 9 months, just by herself. And I'm like, if she can do it for 9 months, this is temporary. I can do this for 2 weeks. I'm going to be fine. I think the hardest part was probably being cut off from nature, because I'm such a nature person and there was no window to open or anything like that. But again, it's just reminding yourself, stay present. This is temporary. You are strong and you're going to be fine. You're going to see nature again. This is going to be a crazy, awesome trip.
Yeah. What I think about when we talk about this is like, there's your thoughts, right? And your core thoughts are those empowering, abundant thoughts. But then on the flip side, there's these inner roommates that are questioning you and trying to implant these toxic, negative, limiting beliefs. And so it's identifying like what are actually your thoughts and what are the thoughts that are placed in your head by other people. But then also understanding like you get to choose your beliefs, right? Obviously, eventually you need to build that track record and like reinstill those beliefs. But when it comes to something like that, like you're talking about it so perfectly, reactionarily, you got hit with that influx of like, oh, am I really supposed to be here? Like just kind of all those what ifs, right? Or like, what if I'm not worthy? What if I don't do well? What if this doesn't go my way? What if I'm missing out, right? And then once you, again, created that little bit of separation, you were able to take a step back and say like, no, like I deserve to be here. I've put in a lot of work to be here. I know I'm going to enjoy it, make the most of it. But also, like, if I miss out, awesome, I'll go back and I'll make up for whatever I missed out. And so that's such an important piece of this. And why I wanted to bring it up was you kind of had that whole like dark night of the soul, and then that complete rebirth into like just that reaffirmation of how strong you are mentally, physically, the fact that you are able to like make the most of what was a pretty bad situation at some points.
It was crazy.
Yeah. So that's something like, if I want people to take something away from that part is, I mean, Kat, like a lot of you who are going to watch this, follow her. A lot of you will probably idolize her. Like, she is strong. She is able to like have fun, crush her goals, do all this stuff. No matter what level you get to, you're going to go from feeling like a king to feeling like a peasant 17 times in a given day.
Yeah.
And it's not about like never feeling bad. It's about increasing your level of awareness so that when you feel bad, you're able to pick up on that and identify, okay, like, is this justifiable to sit with this and acknowledge it? Or is it just wasting my time, killing my energy? And should I do what I can to get back into that high vibe state? So yeah.
Yeah, it really is reminding yourself that you have all the power to be the person you want to be, create your identity, and to give power to the attributes that you want to. Like, yeah, it was definitely a roller coaster. It was like ups and downs every single day. Like, you wake up and you're like, oh, it's going to be a great day. And usually it was like that because I created structure in the beginning of the day and up until like 2. And then 2 and after, I was like, ooh, okay, I guess we're gonna watch Gilmore Girls again. Because like I try to hit 10K steps every day, and I did, except for like 3 days, which was crazy in a hotel room. But it is giving power to the thoughts that you want to about yourself, and accepting that not every day is gonna be okay, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And accepting that some days you're gonna feel kind of like not great about yourself, but again, that's okay. I think people tend to feel bad about feeling bad, which spirals you down.
Yeah.
And then they guilt themselves, and then they sabotage themselves from accepting love from other people because they feel they're not worthy of it. So if you take that guilt away, then it allows you to hear what other people are telling you when they're giving you that pep talk and stuff. Like,
yeah.
Like, it's okay.
But also, like, my mindset around it too is, if you're feeling bad about something, again, it all comes down to this level of awareness of, is that thought coming from, I genuinely believe I need to improve an area of my life? Cool. Then without judgment or emotional attachment, just think about, okay, what's one step I can take to start improving that area of my life? On the flip side of things, with, how social media works and all these, models and billionaires and all these people who are put right in front of your face, is that judgment coming from an expectation or hope that isn't actually even yours?
Right.
And so I think having that distinction, and then once you decide, okay, no, this is actually something that I feel bad about because I feel bad about, awesome, acknowledge it, understand where the motivation is coming from, that underlying core feeling. And then if you need to talk to a coach, talk to a friend, just sit with yourself and think about it, pray on it, whatever works best for you. Like, just take that one step, right? Like, don't build the whole wall, lay that one brick.
Yes. Yeah. It reminds me of your workshop too, where we wrote down people's almost like expectations and feelings and words to describe who we are, kind of thing, and shaping our identity like that, when really it's like, well, who gave you that? And was it you? Like, do you want to believe that? So yeah. It's like, did it come from a parent? And a lot of the stuff that I wrote down came from like my dad growing up. And yeah.
Yeah. So we'll get into the workshop a little bit. So it was a really powerful life coaching workshop where we dove into this idea of this mask that we create the first time in your life, that simply being you wasn't enough to receive love, wasn't enough to fit in, or just simply wasn't enough to avoid judgment or criticism from your tribe, your community. So likely at the very beginning of your life, that's your parents or family, or maybe your 1 or 2 kindergarten friends. And as soon as that first layer of the mask was created, consciously, subconsciously, whatever, you as a physical human being understood that you had this ability to layer on a mask for protection, for comfort, for safety, because it allowed you to fit in, to be part of that tribe, to receive that love and appreciation, even if it was at the expense of not being authentically you. And so we took the group through this process of identifying, as you progressed through life, what did these different pieces of your mask look like? And so it started with early childhood, then going through kind of elementary school, different extracurriculars you did leading into high school, and then whatever the heck else happened throughout your life. So like coming from someone who took the workshop, what were your like biggest takeaways just in the acknowledgement of the mask? Like what was kind of the biggest like holy shit moment?
It was cool because like I know my experience is a little bit different just because like I've done like shadow work and stuff. And it was kind of like the acceptance of like I have moved on past these expectations that were put on me, like being always the entertainer kind of person. Because I think for you and me, we both feel like we always have to be on and we always have to be that entertainer, but taking that pressure off myself has been so relieving. Being like, I have bad days and that's okay. I don't always have to be happy and that's okay. And I can be open about that and not hide from people and being like, yeah, I'm great, when really I'm just crying inside. It's like, no, I'm struggling a little bit.
And that was one of the coolest parts about like creating this, layered mask that we walked everyone through, was there were a lot of traits on there that aren't actually bad traits. Like mine was like winner, successful, intelligent, all things that you want to be, but you want to be them out like for the right reasons, right? You want to be them because you want to be them, not out of a state of fear of getting shunned or getting kicked out of your tribe or your community or your friend group. And so that was one of the biggest distinctions, I think, for a lot of people, was in creating the understanding and just recognition of their mask, realizing that it doesn't have to be a bad trait for it to be a layer on your mask.
And they don't need to put pressure on themselves too, when they're not that expectation that they have on themselves, either put on by them or another person.
Yeah. And so then once everyone got to the point where they acknowledged this mask, and for most people in this workshop, they had no clue what this was going to be about. They had no idea that they had this mask, let alone how thick it was. So simply, and thick as in like layers of the mask.
Like she thick.
Yeah, two C's. So just that part, which wasn't even meant to be this big emotional breakthrough moment for people, that got people like tearing up and really emotional and like really bought into the process of this. And the next step is, after we acknowledge the mask, it was understanding and seeing through the mask to the person who's been hidden and buried beneath that mask for some people in that workshop, 50 years, like a very long time. And so that, I think, was where people really broke down, almost like they allowed that wall to come down and just experience like being with their authentic self. I know, and talk whatever you're comfortable talking about, but I saw you were with people like holding hands throughout this and really connecting. Like, what was that process like for you?
For me, so I guess like, again, it was like a little bit different for me just because I take the time to like confront myself because I've had to get through like eating disorders and stuff. But yeah, like Justin's sister was next to me, and I know that she struggles quite a bit right now, but she's growing a lot. And she was crying, and I'm like, I'm strong enough to help other people, like I've done my work. Now it's my time to help other people. So I think of it as there's the 3-moon goddess, where it's the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And I've been the maiden for so long, being that young one, the young spirited one. And now it's time for me not to be an actual mother, but to be a mother to everyone. And
big reveal. No.
Yo, guess what?
So I think it would be useful, because I actually have never heard that before. So what is, like, you said the maiden, the mother, and the crone?
Yeah, so it's the 3-moon goddess, which is on my ring. And I don't know. Yeah.
Boom.
Boom. Well, it's like crescent moon and then full moon. Yeah. But yeah, it represents the three stages of a woman, or if whoever you identify as, really. And yeah, starting with the maiden being like the young spirited, youthful one and everything. And then you move on to the mother taking care of other people. And then you move on to the crone being, the older one, but very wise. And for me right now, I feel I'm transitioning, not leaving the maiden alone, like leaving it. It will always be in me and stuff. I hope so, because that's my youthfulness, that's my playfulness. But the mother to take care of other people, because I know that I already take care of myself and I can be that person for other people. And I really felt that shift in the workshop, which was so cool. And like I was holding her, and then I held like a few other women there, because I'm like, this is my job now. I'm ready to help others.
Yeah,
more.
that's a really intense feeling, like taking on, like I was telling you about the fact that we were like buzzing afterwards, taking on that energy when you're aware of what the energy feels like in your body is a really intense thing, because you're basically carrying the energetic emotional load of multiple human beings in this one human vessel. And so it's just this weird, cool feeling of responsibility, because essentially that's what you are doing, is you're taking responsibility for that person's energy and trying to impact it in a positive way. So it's a lot of responsibility when you take that on.
It's a lot, but it's cool because you feel older, but not old. Like you feel
more
you've grown.
experienced. Yes.
And you're like, it's time for me to curl my mustache and trim my beard and be like,
level up.
Yes.
So that was the second part, right? And that's where I think we kind of took people out of their heads and into their hearts, kind of, where we gave them all of the quantifiable information, and now it was time to kind of register it in your emotions. And then once we did that, so we got them to acknowledge the mask. Then we got them to acknowledge the person who's been hiding and waiting very, very patiently beneath the mask, and just simply asking that person, like, what will it take for that person to come out? And then how can you serve that authentic version of you so that they stay out, right? That they don't, come out, get hit with a sucker punch emotionally and go right back in. And then the third step, which I think I thought it was going to be powerful, and it was more powerful than I expected, which was, we had an actual fire pit. So we had actual masks for people where they wrote down all these layers. In the mirror, they were looking at this mask and just taking in all the memories and emotions and experiences, and then removing the mask and seeing that soul behind their eyes. And once we did that, we went out to this fire pit, and people had the option to essentially commit to removing the toxic layers of their mask that no longer serve them. And so one at a time, people would walk up with their mask to this fire, and it was so beautiful. They would thank their mask for all of the protection it gave them and the lessons it taught them and how it served them in their life. And with all this love and appreciation, releasing it, right? Just releasing that energy, not judging it, not shaming it, not regretting it, but just releasing it. And it was such a beautiful thing to be a part of. And I think that's where you're talking about, you kind of got the chance to console people in that and really just be present with those people. What was that experience like? Because that was heavy.
Yeah, it was heavy, because I had one girl next to me crying and also cold, so I was holding her. And then after another girl, I won't say their names, another girl put her mask in, and she was just crying, and then I was just holding her hands, and it felt strong. It felt like we're warriors. Like that. It was very cool. Like you could feel the release of everyone, even though they were still crying. You could tell that they felt stronger in a way too. And I even talked to a woman the next day. I'm like, how are you doing? She's like, that was rough. It was hard. She felt like tired and stuff. And I'm like, well, that's what happens when you confront your emotions and you allow yourself to look at that and reflect on yourself. And she said, oh, okay. And then the next day she felt like better and released. And it's nice seeing that, because a lot of people, like when we were looking in the mirror, they're not used to having that time and taking time and slowing down in their day to just look at themselves without as much judgment.
Yeah,
and
not looking at it and be like, ah, my arm should be like an inch bigger. Oh man, I really just don't like that spot right there.
Because we were
But
all like,
yeah, just that like direct eye-to-eye contact of like, I see you.
yes.
Yeah.
It was so powerful and it was so wonderful too. So
Yeah, and it was just such an amazing experience because we did have people like you and Thad in this workshop who you've been doing this work consistently for a long time. And so, and I talked to Thad about this before going in. I said, for you, this is going to be a different experience. For you, it's about really seeing how far you've come by being able to see the just absolute emotional breakthrough these people have seeing this for the first time and just appreciating your journey and where you're at and helping people who need to be helped, very similar to what you did.
Yeah.
And then we had people who have never done life coaching, never really gotten a chance to, or never taken a chance to really partake in an experience like this. And then we just like came through with an emotional battering ram. We're like, now's the time, dude. Like, let's take a look. And so like, just to see that spectrum of experiences, I think was really powerful. But yeah, I wanted to have you on in part just to kind of pick your brain about, as someone who is practiced, but who got to experience it, like what it looked like through the lens of the participant, as opposed to the lens of the host.
Yeah. It was so cool.
It was, yeah.
It was so cool. And like you said, it was cool to see the different stages, to see where people are in their lives and to see them really have that first step towards confronting themselves and realizing that they have more power in themselves and they don't have to hold on to these expectations that they have for themselves. And I'm excited to see other people's like growth as they go on. Like, this is their first step. Like, what else are they going to do to continue on? And I know you guys are going to do more workshops and stuff, and I know they're going to take it and stuff. So
yeah,
it's going to help them a lot.
Yeah. So that's one thing. So we're really in the infancy stages of developing a workshop series right now that, I mean, when strung together, it's quite literally going to be this all-encompassing blueprint that we've culminated throughout the years of how to at least step into pursuing your best self with a knowledge of who you are, what life you want for yourself, why you want it, what your motivations are. So there's big things coming, I'll say that. But the last thing I want to go into is, because like me, you're someone who I think went down this very deep, dark path of should, right? Like, I should be this person. I'm expected to be this way. I'm expected to do these things and act this way and say this stuff. And now, because of that, I almost saw it as like, most people, they flirt with that line of misalignment where they don't get so far off that they're forced to get like slingshot back. But I think you and I, because of how far we got pulled on the path of misalignment, we just got like catapulted right back into the face of like, no, you need to really take a good hard look at what's behind it all.
Yeah.
But so we'll start with like, what did that process look like for you? Because I know we've had a lot of conversations about it, not in front of the camera, but it is a really useful thing for people to know, because so many people have that should, right? They have that mask, they have those expectations, those things that they feel they can't shed. Yeah. But they also haven't hit that level of discomfort where it forces their hand either. So just talking about like your process and what that looked like. Oh man,
it's like you said, it's like forced on you pretty much. And it comes in little stages, like through my eating disorder and stuff. Those forced me to learn how to love myself and to learn how to trust myself and how to do that, how to love yourself. It's such like a, how do you, but for me, it's different for everyone. For me, it was saying no to things that didn't align with me, and then saying yes to things that did align with me, even if it scared me. So I think that's really important, because so many people just stay in their comfort zone and there's no growth there. It was just even like Frogger terrified me, just like signing up for it, but it ended up being the best experience of my life and meeting the most amazing people and pushing me and leveling me up in ways that I never thought would actually happen. But back to self-love and stuff. It's really also about bringing in the mask, taking away the expectations of other people. So I think about like my channel and stuff. And there are comments where it's like, you should do this. Why aren't you like this? Why are you so fat? All that kind of stuff. And it gets to you, even though you have so many great comments and stuff. And then it's coming back to the fact that, but it's not me. And realizing that, yeah, I can create my own identity and I can get part of this, and realizing that also the people who say those negative things, they're in a bad place. It's not on me. And just allowing myself to express myself how I want to. Like I guess a fun story would be when I first started working at Body by Design, I'm like, to my sister, I said, there are all these hot guys there. And I wasn't used to working with hot guys because I always worked at a gym where it's like, you're the only trainer there at the time. And she's like, Kat, just make sure you don't make any animal noises.
Oh no.
Because I'm always like, roar, like, roar. And I said to her, I'm like, no, if they don't like me for me, then I don't want to be with them.
Yeah.
And then look who I got.
That's true.
Now I'm adjusted. So it's like just allowing myself and realizing that the awesome, right people are going to be attracted to my life as long as I stay myself. And I'm that's what brings happiness, is when you really allow yourself to be you. And even with like my style and stuff. And I was lucky enough to have my mom be like, yeah, you can wear what you want. She loved it when there was a time where we had this ceremony and I was like on the honors and stuff, and it was in front of the school and my mom was there and everyone was all like nice dress and stuff. And here I come with combat boots and a tutu, a corset, my hair's all teased and stuff. And then she told me, she's like, I just think about that all the time. And I'm just so proud of you for just being yourself. And so I think it's harder for people who grew up with parents who don't allow them to be themselves. And I get messages all the time on Instagram being like, well, my mom doesn't want me to be vegan, or my mom doesn't want me to get more muscle because it's not attractive or something like that. So for those people, it is more of a struggle for sure.
Yeah.
But just allowing yourself and realizing, I'm unique, and that's cool. And no one who is well known is not unique in their own sense. Like they're known for something. They're known for looking a certain way and being themselves. Like that's why they're so honored.
Yeah. And I think that's what's scary about it, right? Is like, you don't see, when it's someone else, you see the end result, right? But when it's you, before you take that first step, all you see is the drop off.
Yeah.
That's it. And so that's part of why I wanted to bring this up, is like, in terms of living authentically, I think everyone listening can agree, like, it sounds awesome.
Yeah.
If you're willing to do it, it sounds amazing, but that's exactly it. You have to be willing to have those uncomfortable conversations with people. And if you dress in a tutu and combat boots, especially me, if I did that, like, you got to be willing to take those looks. Like there's always going to be critics, right? Like that's just how the world operates at this point. You know, who knows? A lot can happen, but at least for right now, you might get a couple looks. Who freaking cares? Like, and that's where I love that you kind of boiled it down to, like, at the end of this, well, you're still eternally transforming, right? And evolving, but at that kind of breakthroughing point, where like you really bought into, like, even though you're around all these hot guys and like there is that, like, there's that something to lose, right? There's really that stake. You're like, no, if I'm myself, the right people will, gravitate towards me. And that's actually a big reason why I work here, is because you and I connected when we were when I was at the WAC, and you would come in and we would just hit it off. And you're like, oh, you would love I think it was at the time boyfriend, like, you got to hang out with him. And that's how you find your real tribe, where you can take the mask off. You can live authentically. You don't need to be second guessing who you are and how you act, because it just flows. Like there is no, like, I should do this, I should say this, I should be this. It's like, no, you just get to be yourself.
Yeah.
And when you are that around the right people, that's rewarded. And I think that's the most beautiful thing.
Yeah. And that's where you get the best friendships, because like I think about my best friend and I'm like, I can express myself in any way. I don't have to be always on. I can be the quiet one. I can be reserved. I could be the eccentric one. But either way, it's this unconditional love, not only for each other, but for yourself. And I think a lot of people lack that. It's very conditional for themselves, where it's the should, would.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Actually. Yeah.
Yes. All right. I think we've covered a lot. We are also going rock climbing today. So like, sorry for you guys, but we're not going to stick around that much longer.
No.
No. So maybe you remember the question I ask everybody, but I always ask everyone the same question. And especially people who come on multiple times, I'm always curious if the answer changes.
I don't know.
What for you right now is the next step in you pursuing your best self?
Let's see. I think being more confident in myself, because I think of wanting to put out like ads on Facebook about my channel, and I get really insecure about it. And I'm like, I don't know if my content is quality enough. I don't know if people are going to, because people on Facebook are ruthless. Like they will just bash you. So I've done this before where I put out ads, but I get really creepy men, like really, really creepy comments and stuff. And I'm also like kind of reserved about that, like not wanting that, but it comes with the territory of being in a sports bra and stuff and like putting myself out there. So I think it's just getting that confidence to really put myself out there and be okay with that.
Yeah.
And be okay with whatever comes will come, but I need to.
Yeah.
And realizing that my content is great and it helps people so much, not only physically, but mentally. And I really, truly believe that. So yeah, it makes me all like shaky.
All right, I'm going to challenge you then. By the end of the year, I want you to put up a Facebook ad for it.
Okay, I'll put it up.
But I will say I can agree. So I've been starting to do ads for like the podcast, just to get like a wider net of people listening to it. And there was this guy, like never met him before in my life, don't know who he is, but it was like, I thought it was hilarious because I've seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Yes, yeah.
And it was the episode with Tom, and he said something about, because I put like Tom the Shaman, and he said like more like Tom the Charmin. And then he put something else about like, go back under your bridge, you like garbage munching troll, something like that. I don't know. I was laughing so hard when I saw it because I'm like, that's actually kind of funny. Like that's actually pretty good. But yeah, no, like you said, like it just comes to territory. And I think that too, like if you can think of the worst case scenario, someone calling you a garbage munching gobble monster, whatever this guy called me, and you can still go do it, like you win, because you can take the worst and then you get the best.
Yes. Yeah. Because
So
you realize all the celebrities that have to deal with so much. And then I look on YouTube, I'm like, why are these videos? There's literally like hour-long videos just bashing a certain celebrity. And I'm like, take a step back, realizing they're using their time to bash someone else that isn't even their life, that doesn't need to affect them.
Exactly.
And it's the same thing for Facebook comments and Instagram and YouTube. It's like they're going out of their way, using their time they could be using on improving themselves,
on listening to this podcast,
and they're using it to spread hate. Like they're in a bad place. Just realize that it's not you. They're in a very bad place.
Yeah.
And to just send them love, because I think that's one of the things that I've really been trying to practice, is to send someone who irritates me or is hurtful to me online, sending them love, because combating hate with hate doesn't help.
pouring gasoline on a fire.
Yeah.
Which is sometimes fun, but not in this case.
Sometimes fun though.
Yes.
All the time.
Yes. Okay. So there was one more thing I want to say. I'm going to do a little reveal here. So this is episode 49 of the podcast. For next week's episode, we have a very special thing we're doing. So we are ordering hot sauces. Well, we've already ordered hot sauces. We are accepting anyone who wants to join for the live audience. And we're gonna do me and the guest. I'm not gonna tell you who it is because that would ruin it. We're gonna sit down and we're gonna go through these progressively hotter hot sauces while we answer like really deep,
Oh my
vulnerable
God.
questions. And really what we're trying to do is we're trying to show people like if you challenge yourself in a controlled environment, it makes getting challenged in an uncontrolled environment a little easier. So eating a California Reaper and ghost pepper filled sauce is our fun little way of doing that. So episode 50,
Yeah.
make sure you watch it. It's going to drop exactly 1 week after this episode. If you are interested in being part of the live studio audience, it's going to be going down in Madison, Wisconsin. It will be freaking hilarious. I'll tell you this right now. I tried one of them and I was going to record it and I almost fainted. So I stopped the recording. So it's going to be good.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Do you have standby?
We're at a gym. They probably have an AED or something.
Do you
So
have a tap in and tap out guy?
we'll be good. So yeah, if anyone's interested, comment below, hit me up. My info is down below. I will put Kat's info that she wants me to put down below, her YouTube channel. If you don't already subscribe to it, subscribe to it.
Do it.
If you don't subscribe to this, subscribe to this.
Do that.
And then, yeah, just, have fun. Do what you want to do. Be who you want to be.
Enjoy the
and
journey.
Enjoy the journey. We will
Yeah.
catch you next time.
Bye.